Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to Loot Goblin Marketplace. We're bringing back the RPG horror stories, and today's treasure goes by the name of Workplace Sanctioned D&D, What Could Go Wrong? And it's a cautionary tale about how bringing D&D into the workplace can bring out personalities that you do not want to see in your coworkers. Before we jump into the video, I just want to talk about today's sponsor. When Homie and the Dude reached out about the Wandering Tavern Kickstarter, they had me when they said that there was a flying tavern in a Studio Ghibli inspired style. Backing the Kickstarter using the link below helps me in the channel, and in exchange you're going to get 15 giant battle maps with 23 unique key locations, a ton of plug-and-play NPCs, 30 plus hooks, and of course flying zephyrs. Please check out the project, it's really cool. I saw what they did with the Flying Zephyrs Kickstarter in the past, and I've been a fan of them ever since. So let's jump right into the video. Before we begin, some context is needed. I have always had the same friend group, and that continues to this day, plus or minus a few friends here and there. Through a long plan concocted by a few of us, close to 20 people, including friends, friends of friends, and significant others, all got hired at the same tech support company. The company was signing new clients every day and things were rapidly expanding. By the end of the story, half the people in the building were people I knew before I started working there. One of us was made into a manager. The whole team was moved to a new larger building complete with a 14-person conference room. The room had a massive table, chairs, and a projector, and a mini fridge. And absolutely no purpose. We were the support folks. No one visited us, meetings with clients were held in the admin building down the street, so our manager asked permission to run a D&D game on weekends, when the completely unused conference room would definitely be extra not used. The admins gave their blessing, so long as we were not loud enough to distract those actually working, and only employees of the company were in the game, or at least in the conference room. Security reasons and all that. They seemed to think that the game would serve as a free team building exercise, and would occasionally send pizza or whatever. Oh hell yeah, we love them corporate pizza parties. What could possibly go wrong? There was a total of 8 people in this campaign, but only 3 matter for this story, and honestly, I'm not really one of them. Our cast, the manager, our DM, the orchestrator of our grand adventure, Stacy, longtime member of the friend group, Steve, one of the newest members of the friend group and of the company. He lets us know that he has tons of TTRPG experience, but has never done a game of D&D, and doesn't know the setting lore. Everyone is excited, the manager starts to write out the story. He tells us that he's going to run the most ambitious game of his life, and it will be an evil campaign. Most of us were veterans, and we all talked about how fun and how hard it was to run an evil campaign. If everyone is evil, then in-party fighting is not only common, but sometimes encouraged, and this can lead to sore feelings and untimely deaths. But it was also an opportunity to try out class, subclasses, domains that you normally don't get to play. And the manager promised us exactly that, a party of the worst that the world has to offer, not motivated by a collective feeling of righteousness and goodwill, but instead loosely held together with the promise of wealth, women, men, power, and edge. We were told anything goes as long as it's evil. Do your worst, bring your biggest monster, we are all adults here, and it's time we played like adults. We all agreed this campaign was going to get evil, and probably not safe for work at work. Yeah, we didn't think this through. Okay, I'm glad they said it before I was going to say it, because this sounds like an HR nightmare. You only need one person to walk by, or one person in the game, to be mildly uncomfortable, and it spirals into something much, much larger. This is the kind of stuff that you keep at home. I know they said about like half the building are their friends, but even different friends have lines that they draw for certain topics, and you're going off on the deep end right now. So the campaign was set in the City of Spiders, the most well-known drow city in D&D lore, and the DM cautioned us that since this was going to be a hardcore evil game, racism in-game, not out-of-game, was going to be prevalent. The drow are not the most inclusive bunch, and he's going to roleplay the world as it is described in the book. All of us took the hint and made drow characters, everyone except Steve. Steve was a human. We explained the situation to him, and he decided to make a human fighter that was a gladiatorial slave. It was actually kind of clever and fit in well. Session 0 wraps up nicely, and we all can't sleep out of excitement for Session 1. We start in a marketplace. Suddenly, all the exits are blocked by guards who won't let anyone out. There is the sound of marching as nothing short of a small army of mercenaries, slaves, and kobolds with sharp sticks are funneled into the market by the guards. Everyone is pressed in on all sides, and then the army starts murdering everyone without discrimination. Each of our party is somewhere all doing various market things. We each start defending ourselves when a voice calls out, "With me." It is a tall, beautiful, in a totally cool old guy regal way, you guys. Strong, handsome, muscular, suave. So the DMPC calls out to the whole market, Those that can fight, hold them off. Those that can heal, tend to the injured. Leave the dead, the rest to me. And then he starts making an extra large teleportation circle while also projecting a divine shield around the poor defenseless marketgoers. Throughout the entire campaign, we never got a straight answer on the classes that the DMPC had. We had to survive 5 rounds of holding back an army while he makes the circle so that we can escape. Our resident sorcerer assists in making the circle, cutting it down to 3 rounds, and we escape, beat into a bloody pulp, but with no one actually dead. The whole party teleports. Several sharp-stick kobolds come along for the ride. They are quickly slaughtered by more city guards, but with cool mysterious badges at our destination. One kobold surrenders and instantly becomes the party's mascot. The DMPC offers us a job, free room and board, plus travel expenses on top of a salary and the standard "what you loot is yours" clause at the end. Everyone signs up and session wraps. The manager promises us that the DMPC will sit at his desk and hand out quests, rather than come along to do our jobs with us. Think of him as a manager. Hopes are high, everyone is mostly happy, and this looks like it's going to be tons of fun. Alright, I know this is unrelated to the story, but let me just say, this manager, DMPC, sounds like he gives better benefits than probably the company themselves. Free housing, travel expense, salary, and bonuses. Man, this is the fantasy aspect of the game. Alright, back to the story. What followed was several months of confusion. We learned that the DMPC wanted to dispose Lolth, Queen of Spiders, and the Goddess of the Drow, and install Veyron in the place as the primary god of the Drow. The DMPC takes some time to explain the political and socio-economic ramifications of this undertaking for Steve's benefit, as he's the only person not up to speed on the lore. We all chime in respectively, filling in the other details about the world and Drow culture. However, the DM painstakingly corrects us on a few details. Anyone that has seen the official artwork of Veyron knows he is not only Lol's son, but also a rather edgy boy, whose primary motivation is sorting out his mommy issues by way of knives and other sharp stabby things. He is a chaotic evil deity who is unpredictable and doesn't play well with others. However, the DM talked about Veyron as if he was a noble, lawful, paragon of justice against evil mothers everywhere. This is where the campaign gets weird. We learn that our DMPC is a lawful good paladin of Veyron and wants nothing less than rainbows and kittens in every home of Menzoberranzan, and while we're under his employ, we are expected to do the same. No extra evil, no extracurricular murder, just do the job and be Boy Scouts while doing it. Leave no trace, and all that. We were told verbatim, you can be evil, but while you work for me, you will do no evil. This is not quite the evil campaign that was advertised. So the party assassin cannot assassinate people, or at least he can't take contracts to kill people, which was his backstory. He is allowed to kill people, but only if they were evil and they attack him first, and we're supposed to kill them for the mission we were on. The cleric can't worship Lolth anymore and had to convert worshipping Veyron. Illustrati is an acceptable alternative, and I'm not railroading you, I promise. The warlock needs to get a patron that isn't a devil, maybe an archfey or a celestial. The DMPC knows a few angels, it's fine, we can figure it out. The party finds itself in an awkward position. We're in a D&D game at work where the DM is basically forcing rewrites to all our characters under the guise of, I'm not changing your backstory, just your current story. It's character growth. Also, the DM is literally our boss, controls our schedules, and has power to fire us. Now, we've talked in the past about how DMs can have a bit of a power trip, but this person actually wields some legitimate power over these people. We keep playing for months, the game continues, but every time anyone gets a little too evil, in a city where everyone is evil, the DMPC shows up and politely chastises them before handing out snacks and running off again. Well, it's nice they have snacks. The enthusiasm is gone, but most of us stick with it. 2 people drop when their characters die, leaving us at 6. This is a story where Stacy and Steve come in. Their characters have been enjoying a somewhat one-sided romance. Steve's character is stunned by Stacy's character's beauty and independence. Stacy's character thinks Steve's character is adorable in a same way a puppy is. But a romance of sort takes place and starts to grow. The 2 become stronger friends outside of the game. After some time developing, Steve has his character propose to Stacy's. He gets down on one knee and seems to be role-playing, addressing Stacy by her character's name and talking about their shared adventures and how he likes being at her side, even if that means in this world being at your feet. Then he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a box with a ring and proposes to Stacy then and there in front of all of us. No one speaks, no one moves. We just sit there and watch. Oh no. After realizing what was actually happening, Stacy closes the ring box and offers a bit of a compromise. Their characters would get married in the game. However, if Steve wanted to marry her, he had to date her first and truly get to know her and not just her character. The 2 start dating, and the rest of us breathe a collective sigh of relief. The manager gives each character a magic item as a wedding present. Stacy receives a cool animated snake whip, and Steve receives a thundering halberd. This is not where I thought the story would go. The coworker proposes and they haven't even been on a single date. I don't know how Stacy de-escalated that like that, and I don't know why they're dating after that. That's wow. The game itself deteriorates as time moves on. The quests become repetitive, go to the place, sneak inside, steal the MacGuffin, kill the bad guy of the week, and try to sneak out. Each time the mission would go the same way. We would sneak in, get to the MacGuffin vault, realize that the only way to open it was a key held by the bad guy of the week. Then we'd get caught trying to sneak to the bad guy's room, usually because of Steve's halberd, thundering. Guards would materialize out of the woodwork. We would kill everything in sight, except for the obligatory I just work here man, maid, cook, whatever that always happened to be standing in fireball range of the rest of the baddies. We would be battered and bruised and walked into the boss room, and the boss would TPK us, except they wouldn't. The boss would never deal a killing blow and just down us. Once the whole party was down, the DMPC would show up, one-shot the boss, and then heal everyone. He would toss us the key to the vault while tossing the MacGuffin up and down in his free hand. What would follow would be what I think was supposed to be encouraging pep talk and suggestions for how to improve ourselves. It always came off as belittling and often broke the fourth wall to the point that the manager was just telling us how to play our classes. We head back to the vault to grab our loot, and every time the pedestal that was supposed to have the MacGuffin would have some treats and a sticky note letting us know that the DMPC still loved us and had high hopes for next time. Basically, the manager was annoyed that we couldn't beat his encounter, so he kept reworking it and just running us through it again. The setting and names and MacGuffins would change, but it was the same session for around a month or so. We plead with Steve not to use the halberd when we were trying to sneak in. We bring up all the times when there is plenty of opportunity to go thundering about when we are not trying to be stealthy. We also beg the manager for more encounters that are not stealth dependent so Steve can get some much needed halberd time in. But no, same session, different week. Stacy and Steve move in together, start sharing a ride, and start using the game as an excuse to hang out rather than participate. Stacy still keeps tabs on what's going on and would chime in when her name was called, but Steve basically stopped paying attention to anything but combat. Finally, we move forward. The MacGuffin this time is a bag of magic dust with magic properties unlike any that you've ever seen. Whatever. Sneak, 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 stab, stab, stab. The clear casts silence on Steve's halberd, so we can hack and slash with impunity, and we manage to get to the boss room without triggering the alarm. The boss goes down super easily, since he was unprepared and didn't have his gear on him. And we head off to the vault, which was a magic waterfall this time, that you need a magic stone to open, whatever. Water turns off, we grab the magic bag and the loot, and we head home. The DMPC is fascinated by the magic dust and says he will look into it. We do some side shopping and RP, and then next session we get our next quest. We're going to the surface to mine a bunch of magic dust from a cave that the DMPC found. We had a crew of 20 dwarves going with us to mine the rock. We're just going with them to keep them safe. So outside the cave is a forest that is infested with trolls. The sorcerer uses illusion magic to hide the entrance to the cave, but the manager just stops him because it would break the encounter. What we have is a session of basically fighting wave after wave of trolls, but quietly so we don't alert the rest of the trolls. The party cuts down a few trees to make a barricade since the illusion idea won't work. Steve uses his thundering halberd to help chop down trees. Everyone, DM included, reminds him that we need to be stealthy. And the cleric runs over with the silence spell, having learned from many previous sessions that Steve doesn't like being told not to use his halberd. Steve is adamant that he uses the halberd before the cleric gets there, and even tried to roll initiative to see who would go first, him or the cleric. The DM gives up, the halberd thunders, and we are up to our eyes in trolls. We are all dead by the second round. Steve insists he did nothing wrong and that all the planning and politics are boring, and he wanted to skip the fight. He and the DM get into an argument over his fun versus everyone's fun. They start shouting at each other, and soon we remember that we are at work. There's a full support center outside with people on phones who can hear this argument. One of our coworkers barges in to shush us all since clients can hear us. The manager turns to Steve and fires him on the spot for causing an argument. Steve argues even louder that he isn't on the clock and they can't fire him. Everyone but the manager, Stacy, and Steve flee the crime scene and head home. The aftermath. The admin building gets several complaints from customers about hearing swearing and arguing in the background of their calls. Steve is the first of us to work the next morning. He is swiftly fired, not because of the manager's decision, but because of his actions afterward. The manager himself hears about this and puts in his 2 weeks before going to work the next day. He is told to go ahead and clean out his desk. According to HR, he resigned, but he didn't show up a day of his last 2 weeks. The conference door was locked by the custodial staff the next morning, and to my knowledge, it remains locked to this day. Steve and Stacey drove home the night of the argument and fought the whole way home, with Steve insisting that it was her duty to back him up in the argument. She gets mad and leaves him, moving on to a friend's couch for a week or two while she finds a place to live. Years later, she actually marries this friend, and they've been happily married since. She still refuses to join in our games of D&D. The manager actually continued the campaign with the 4 of us remaining and nosedived it into the ground. It might be worth a story in its own right, but that is all for now. TLDR. A manager tries to run D&D at work, he gets into an argument with the player, and the two are promptly fired. This story had so many twists and turns that I genuinely did not think this is how it'd end. People getting fired, sure, but think about it this way. They wanted to run an evil campaign where everyone was degenerates. The campaign was set in a setting where there was a lot of racism and a lot of slavery. One player, without dating someone at all, proposes to them at work. I know they're off the clock, but still. And somehow that ends up okay. Sure, they don't end up together at the end, but that's not why the firing happened either. I don't know how all of that didn't result in the firing, but what does result in the firing is Steve the human fighter wanting to whack stuff with a loud weapon, and the rest of the party groaning that there's going to be a TPK because there's been a TPK the last 20 sessions he's done this. So I originally went into the story thinking like, all right, DMPC romance is going to be the thing that really breaks apart this party. Don't mix business and pleasure. You know, all that fun, generic, good advice. No. It's don't yell at your boss because your boss has an ego, and don't come to work on the weekend when you don't have to. Which honestly, I guess that's the advice I'm going to give. This is a weird story. I hope you had fun. I hope you check out that Kickstarter because it's a really cool project by Homie and the Dude, and I'll see you in the next one. Like and subscribe to see more horror stories, and farewell for now.